Here we go again, another repaint video. I'm Hannah from Hoodles and this is the process of my 4th Teamon Rooibos red tea, which I don't drink often. It feels like an acquired taste. It's one of those teas not made from the tea bush, which makes it not a tea at all, but who cares, she's a rebel anyway. And hey, I'm getting better at these illustrations. I'm making all my characters into chibis from now on. It's, more fun that way. I tried adding white lines along the edges a bit this time and I think it looked cool. And boy, do I need to wash these gloves. I occasionally do, but I can't get acrylic paint to disappear. I've tried everything. Well, this is the life of a crafter. It's quite messy. And while I'm talking nonsense, I should have made something for Christmas, but I haven't. I had some ideas for the dolls, but Christmas, it just kind of snuck up on me like all sneaky and time went swoosh. And I have been playing Christmas music for my students and I have Christmas feelings, but life is too messy at the moment. I am done with the illustration, let's get into this. As usual, it starts with a broken cup. I sand the edges at an angle with my Dremel on both sides while wearing a mask and safety goggles, then I glue them together. The glue I use is not food safe and maybe this old tube needs to retire, it looks super messy. I put some glue on one of the pieces and wait a little while before pressing them together. Let's get the final piece there. After drying, I scrape the excess glue off with an X-Acto knife, then I dig into it more with some acetone and a Q-tip. Then I paint the crevices as carefully as my lack of patience lets me. Finally, I rub the excess off with more acetone and seal the inside with nail polish. Some people have asked me if they could make their own Teamon, and I love it. Please do, it would be awesome, and I would be super honored. Anyway, let's get back into this. While waiting for it to dry, I prepared the doll. I used this broken and sad operetta. I used this base sparingly due to the marking on her face, and because her skin tone is sometimes a pain to work with. This time I nailed it though. After cutting her hair, I scrape the rest with a flat screwdriver, then I make an incision to take it all out, and it was a mess. So much glue, it was disgusting, but oddly satisfying. I remove the paint with acetone, a cotton pad and a couple of Q-tips. I am trying to get into all crevices, then I spray a base layer of MSC before starting on the face-up. I draw the outlines, trying to make them even. She got green eyes, which I know Operetta already has, so I was a little bit worried she would look like Operetta 2.0, but trust the process. She got some heavy blushing with red pastels, then I worked on eyelashes, which I'm still not satisfied with after all these years. Do I want them super defined and neat or fluffy and messy? I don't know. Please note that the highlight on her top lip is a little heart, by the way, it's so cute. I draw some strands on her eyebrows, then her pupils, making her plus sign Teamon eyes. I add a darker gradient with pastels and then go nuts with my white watercolor pencil. Highlighting makes such a difference. Some more shading inside the eyes, this was the 3rd layer. Next I work with some acrylics. I tried painting white lines beside the lashes this time, if it makes sense, which I think looked cool, then I went on painting random fine lines. Some red lashes to match the hair, then I gloss the lips and eyes with Tamiya gloss varnish. Here you can see the difference it makes. When glossing the eyes, I usually don't since it might interfere while taking photos, but it felt right for these. Then I painted a Kintsugi, mixing Colira paint with Liquitex gloss varnish. Finally, I glue the incision I made to take out the hair, then I paint the scalp to match it. I was trying to figure out what to do about her facial markings. The decision stood between enhancing or hiding. I decided to enhance it by making a wash. I mixed acrylic paint with a flow aid, then I painted it directly. Since it's so watered down, it settles in the grooves, leaving the raised parts lighter. I have a pre-bought wash from the Armor Painter, but this works just as fine. In the spur of the moment, I also added some gold flakes. I love adding gold flakes, but I missed my glitter glue, so it will be back soon. I tried this earring and was thinking of adding it, but I didn't in the end. This looks pretty cool though. With the face up finished, I cut off the legs and work on the body. This looks super weird. Anyway, to remove the tattoos, I use acetone, then buff the surface since acetone melts the plastic. The left arm is the wrong color, by the way, but it won't show in the end. So yeah, next is clothes. I wanted flared sleeves, so I altered a pattern I already had from before, cutting it into strips and flaring them out on another piece of paper. I taped them there and cut out the new pattern, and yeah, it's pretty easy. I trace it onto this sheer fabric and cut it out. I then glue the edges with fabric glue because it tends to fray and makes a mess. Then I glue it directly onto the body with super glue. She will be partially submerged in resin, so there's no need to make the clothes detachable. Not sure this was the best sewing, but I hand-stitched the sleeves shut. Then I gathered the end, gluing it to the wrist. It looked empty and sad, so I added some lace to it. While I was at it, I glued the same lace on her forearm. As usual, I made the skirt in 2 layers, gathering and gluing the same fabric as the sleeves. To make it bustier, I first made a pattern on another doll, taping the torso with masking tape and then drawing out the pieces. Then I peeled it off, cut the parts and transferred them onto paper. Then I used the pattern to glue fall leather pieces directly onto the torso. I'm not sure this was the best way to do it, I had to save it a couple of times. There we go, now it just needs the left side. I added some shoulder straps and honestly I wanted to make it look more like armor, but it ended up differently than intended. Here I'm adding gold flakes and decorations before I painted the seams. Here I'm using black acrylic paint and a flowway to make it look more worn. First I paint and then remove the excess with a cotton pad, then I painted gold along the edges. Then I added this scarf by gathering a ribbon and sewing it in place. I also sewed a little red cross while at it, then I added a ribbon on top. You know what, I just add things at this point, until I've had enough. And I've had enough at this point. Blushing the hands never hurts, it makes her look more alive. I decided to gild her fingers, so I painted them with Liquitex gloss varnish and added gold flakes. And there we go, let's assemble. I make 3 incisions inside the neck, cut the neck peg a bit and recapitate her. Almost there, let's make her a pair of horns. I stab wires into a spare head and ensure they're both equally long, then I gently bend them a bit and cover them with hot glue. Then I mix epoxy clay and sculpt. These turned out bulkier than previous ones. I wanted them to look roughly like dragon horns, so I flattened them and twisted them gently. In the end, I mixed way too much clay for the occasion and made 2 extra horns. And this is what happens when you don't have a wire base. I made a little contraption with a toothpick while it cured. And it worked. After 24 hours, I took them off and sanded them a bit to buff the surface, then I practiced magic. Look at this paint and see how it looks when dry. I'm glad it turned out this dark though, it contrasted well with her hair later on. First I dry brushed with a lighter color and added gold to the tips, then I glossed it all with Liquitex gloss varnish. Clothes, face up and horns finished, time to fix the cup. I made the regular flowers using paper clay and sugar paste punch things. If the clay sticks to the baking sheet, I heat it from the bottom with my blow dryer. Truth be told, I've already finished the last Teamon and I will miss making these. I could break some more cups. Or maybe that's a bad idea. While the flowers dry, I add gold flakes to the saucer to hide the branches. Then I mix a green color to paint some leaves with my airbrush. Mixing a darker shade, I add some depth to them, then I add a bunch of red to the green. It will mute it down a bit, making it darker, and yeah, well, this was fun. After painting the flowers, I added yellow to make the paint brighter and airbrushed them from above. I associate Rooibos with more of a rust color. As with all other flowers, I glued some caviar pearls in the middle, then glued them onto the saucer. And there we go, I love it so much. To save on resin, it's pointless to fill out space that won't be seen, plus the resin is heavy weight-wise, so I added a piece of clay inside the cup. After drying, I glued it all in place. Then I make a cup of tea out of resin. Finally, I've calculated the density and can use weight to measure the resin. I prefer using weight, especially when I mix smaller quantities. It's much more precise than volume. The color turned out more red than intended, but it mixed well with the skirts. I was super anxious that I would accidentally poke her face with the resin, ruining everything, but I didn't. Here I'm trying to arrange her skirts. Why does it look so violent? After curing on a leveled surface for 24 hours, I can continue assembling everything, the horns and then the hair. My glue gun needs some deep cleaning and TLC, but it works. Like the rest of my Teamons, she got regular doll hair wefts. It leaves a weird parting on her head, which I will cover. You see what I mean, so yeah, let's fix some of it with my embossing tool. Time to add more random things. I wished I was organized and had a project plan, but that's not me. Instead I try something and hope for the best, and most of the time it turns out okay. The red thing on her forehead leaked glue which dissolved parts of her face up, so I covered that with gold flakes after adding these little piercings. They reminded me of Darjeeling, and I realized there needed to be more piercings on my costumes, so I'll add that to my list. Piercings and glitter glue. I was not too fond of the silver and covered it with more gold, why not, and with that the doll was finished. I mixed too much red resin and made butterflies out of the excess. I then used my Armor Painter wash to enhance the shape. I love this effect. After letting it dry, I added gold on top. After a coat of Liquitex gloss varnish, I just had to add them to the doll. What's left is the paperwork. First the tea label, then the certificate, and this time I didn't burn it too much. I glued it to the string but forgot to film that, not that it's like a central part of the process, but it feels weird not showing the final step. And yeah, I didn't make a Christmas doll this year, at least this one is the right color theme. I need to learn to work with the algorithm, but I feel like the world is on fire and I'm just sitting here doing my little craft trying to stay positive. Just keep swimming. I hope you guys take care of yourself and your loved ones. We're all in the same storm but with different boats, sort of, you know, if that makes sense. Next up is Matcha. She is already finished and will be up as soon as possible, but for now this is what I worked with and this is the result. She is definitely a hardcore rebel. I love how she turned out, especially the horns. I hope you're having a good day or evening and Merry Christmas, depending on when you're watching this, I guess. Until next time, bye!